Most congregations like their pastors to be hip, with it, up to date on all things, able to weave in illustrations from whatever the current favorite movie is, to quote the lyrics from popular songs, to be on top of social media and everything going on in social media. I never was hip. And so, I begin today with a story that's about 20 years old. You remember the TV show Wheel of Fortune? Is it still wheeling? I don't even know. I know that the longtime host, Pat Sajak, isn't around anymore, but about 20 years or so ago, the Wheel of Fortune crew, all packed up there in Hollywood where the show originated, and they took the cast and the crew and everyone all the way across the country to New York City, and for a week they telecast from Radio City Music Hall in New York. And so they had a New York audience, live studio audience, and about Wednesday of that week, Pat Sajak comes out to begin the show, and he says, "Have you noticed that I have not once gone for cheap applause by saying, we're coming to you from the greatest city on earth?" And of course, cheap applause abounded. Now, the Sunday before Thanksgiving is a terrible temptation for preachers to go for cheap applause. I mean, what could be more enjoyable than the preacher waxing eloquent about the Pilgrims and their hardships and the terrible things that they faced as they crossed the North Atlantic Ocean and the Mayflower, and landing at Plymouth Rock just as winter was descending on New England. People love it when you tell that story. And you can embellish it and make it just as sappy and syrupy as you possibly can, and cheap applause just rains down on the preacher. But since I don't have to come back next week, that's about the last you're going to hear about the Pilgrims this morning. But I do want to talk about Thanksgiving, about gratitude, about that thing that happens deep inside of us when we feel like we just have to fall down on our knees in thanks and gratefulness. And I want to suggest this morning that our culture generally, and most of us, most of the time, have thanks and gratitude exactly upside down and backwards. First of all, I think that abundance is the enemy of thanksgiving. Now, most of the time from pulpits and editorialists and all that sort of thing, we hear people telling us and reminding us of the bounty that we have in our lives, our big houses, our nice cars in the garage, our 401ks, the beautiful clothing that we have to wear, of all the blessings that we have received. I don't think you can be very thankful for abundance. Not really. Abundance isn't what drives us to our knees in gratitude. Let me explain. At my household, I'm not allowed to go to the grocery store. And the reason given for my banishment from grocery shopping is that I'm bad at it. That I come home with things that were not on the list, and the most important thing on the list, I forgot. So decades ago, I was banned from grocery shopping. But once in a while, my beloved goes off to visit the grandchildren or something, and I'm left home alone, and I run out of something. And I have to go to the store. Not too long ago, this happened, and I had to go to the store for all things milk and cereal. Seemingly something even I could handle. And I get to the store and I get my shopping cart and I'm just tooling around looking for the cereal aisle. Because you see, I don't get to go there. I don't know where it is. I have to look for it. And I peel around the corner, all ready to grab my favorite cold cereal off the shelf, and I'm confronted with 100 feet of cold cereal. I'm telling you, you cannot be grateful for 100 feet of cold cereal. It's abundance, all right, but I had not one particle of gratitude about being faced with this gauntlet of cereal, and there are only about 4 different cereals, really. I mean, they're all in these different packages and all that thing. In fact, if you leave the milk on the cereal about 5 minutes, they're all the same. But there it is. Abundance. 100 feet of selections of cold cereal. I'm telling you, abundance is not the response, or gratitude is not the response to abundance. Gratitude comes out of knowing that it was close and we almost didn't make it. If leaving today, you are confronted with one of our neighbors who has no shelter, no home, and they're asked for $10 so they go over here to McDonald's, maybe it's 20 now to get to McDonald's, but whatever it is now, for lunch, if you hand over that $10 bill, you're handing over your abundance. You got lots of $10 bills or access to them. But for somebody who hasn't eaten maybe in days, the gift of a meal is the occasion for enormous gratitude. It means something then. There was an author who once described the cereal aisle as meaningless abundance. It's a great phrase, I think. Meaningless abundance. And unfortunately, much of what we are asked to give thanks for at Thanksgiving time is just more of the meaningless abundance. So I'd say that our nice, comfortable, middle-class lives are not well suited for in bringing into us, in bringing from us profound gratitude. We have to look for something deeper than that. Secondly, today, I would say that one of the things we can be thankful for this week is weakness. Now, we're a culture that loves power. Powerful athletes, powerful economies, powerful militaries. On down the road, we worship the powerful. But power is hardly a source or a motivator or a generator of gratitude? What's the very most important thing you can have in your life? Probably somebody to love you. And I defy you to exercise your power to persuade someone to love you. In fact, it's just the opposite, isn't it? Whenever my lovely wife tells me she loves me, I frequently respond by saying, it doesn't reflect well on your judgment. And she thinks I'm just being falsely modest. But the reality is that when someone loves us, it isn't because of their good judgment. They'd probably love somebody else if it were just simply good judgment being exercised. Now, the most important thing in all of our lives doesn't come out of abundance, and it doesn't come out of our powers to command it. It's simply given. And for that, we can be eternally grateful. Or another example, our daily bread. We are prone and cultured and taught to believe that we work hard and we make our money and we can buy our food and we can be thankful for the inherent power we have in us to get food. It's not true. We don't eat because we're powerful. Have any of you ever been gardeners? You know, I'm the second worst gardener in the world. I don't know who the worst one is, but there's got to be somebody out there worse. But if you put a seed in the soil, you can put the right seed in the right soil at the right depth with the right amount of water, and then by the power within you, you cause it to germinate? No. The productivity of our planet, this incredible social network of people, from the farmer to the miller to the grinder to the butcher to the grocery store, it doesn't happen because we're strong, because we're mighty, because we're affluent, because we're powerful. It's a gift. And we can be thankful, deeply thankful, for the gifts of love and daily bread and on and on. These things we cannot get by our own strength. We have Thanksgiving upside down. We pretend or try to be thankful for the things that cannot generate thankfulness, and we don't offer thanks for our poverty, our weakness, and the gifts of God that pour then on us. All sermons are supposed to have 3 points and a poem. I've got 3 points, but no poem here. So number 3, we can be thankful that Christ is King. Today is a holiday, and you can go to the store and look through all the Hallmark cards there are, and you cannot find a single card for Christ the King Sunday. But it's a way important holiday. Congregations that were subject to my presence we're sort of forced to learn about Christ the King Sunday, and we celebrated it every year whether they wanted to or not. But Christ the King Sunday is the culmination, it's the ultimate, it's kind of the goal of the great liturgical and worship calendar that goes around the year. Next Sunday is New Year's, the first Sunday in Advent, the beginning. And what do we do in Advent? We wait. We wait for the coming of the Christ child. And then the seasons move on, and we learn of the teachings and ministry of Christ. We learn of the death and resurrection of Christ. We learn of the coming of the Holy Spirit. The calendar marches its way around till it gets to the last Sunday of the cycle. Today, Christ the King Sunday, where we wait for Christ to come again in glory. And it comes full circle. And the high point is today. I counted up this week. I'm so old, I have lived under the administration of 14 presidents. Some of them I thought were all right, and some of them I didn't think were so hot at all. But I don't want any of them to be king. Christ is king. Our gospel lesson this morning is that wonderful little piece of the vignette of Jesus' trial before Pilate. And who was Pilate? Well, Pilate was Rome. Pilate was the epitome of abundance in that time. Who was Pilate? Pilate was Rome. Rome was the epitome of power in that time. And who was Jesus? The penniless prophet from Galilee. And in this trial dialogue that John the Evangelist presents to us, Rome in all of its power finds itself in a strange and inexplicable way governed by the penniless prophet king. You see, Thanksgiving is thankful for all those things that are gifts, not the things that are earned. I will close with another old story from the old guy. It's about a man named Martin Rinkart, even older than me, born in 1586 and died in 1649. He lived in Saxony, which is a part of Europe, and during his lifespan, in fact, virtually all of his adult life was during the period that historians call the 30 Years' War. It was a time period where across Europe there was constant warfare. And Saxony, this area that Rinkart is from, was kind of right in the bullseye of the whole 30 years. And the army swept this way, and they swept that way, and behind in their wake was famine, was pestilence. It was a horrible time to be alive. Rinkart was a pastor, and he was a journal keeper, a diary keeper, and from his diaries, we are able to count that he did during his really rather short pastoral career. He did 4,500 funerals. To put that in perspective, in my 40 or 45 years, I'm not even up to 1,000 yet. 4,500 burials. And there were days, apparently, single days, when he might bury 40 to 50 people during a famine or pestilence. How did he do that? About sunup, he would go to the cemetery, and people would come bearing their dead. And he would pray over them as they were placed in the earth, and then he would look up and see another procession of people coming, and so on, all day long. If ever there was a person who had a reason to find life to be harsh and difficult and heartbreaking, it was Martin. But one day, he sat down in his study when he didn't, I suppose, have 40 burials that day, and he wrote a poem. Well, I guess I do have a poem for you. Couldn't be better than 3 points in a poem. Rinkart's poem will sound familiar to you. It goes like this. Now, and remember the now that he was writing in. Now thank we all our God with heart, hands, and voices, who wondrous things has done, in whom this world rejoices, who from our mother's arms has blessed us on our way with countless gifts of love, and still is ours today. Yes, it's a week, it's a lifetime to be thankful in our weakness, because Christ, and only Christ, is King.